The roar of engines in Illinois, the silence of factories in Brampton. Stellantis just tore up the North American map. $13 billion ripped from Canadian soil, handed to U.S. states wrapped in Trump tariffs. Thousands of jobs erased overnight, and a question no one dares to ask. Was this reshoring or economic warfare disguised as patriotism? Engines are restarting in Illinois, but the echo they leave in Canada is hollow. The announcement came like a thunderclap. Stellantis will pour $13 billion into new and retooled plants across the United States over the next 4 years. 2 idle assembly lines, Belvidere and Toledo, are coming back to life, with Jeep Cherokee and Compass rolling out by 2027. 5,000 new American jobs, 50% more U.S. production capacity, a political win for Trump, so loud it can be heard from Detroit to Ottawa. But for Canada, it lands like an earthquake. Brampton Assembly Plant, once the heartbeat of Ontario's auto belt, is now silent. The retooling that was supposed to secure its future has been paused since February after Washington slapped a 25% tariff on Canadian-made vehicles. That single move turned a $1 billion investment into a liability overnight. Unifor President Lana Payne didn't mince words. Canadian auto jobs are being sacrificed on the Trump altar. She called for a Team Canada strategy, government, industry, workers moving in one formation to push back against what she called an industrial takeover disguised as a policy win. In her view, this isn't just business, it's a message. Canada was warned, play by Washington's rules or watch your factories die.
To understand this moment, we have to see how tariffs became bullets. Under Trump's renewed trade agenda, any vehicle assembled outside U.S. soil faces a 25% import tax. The stated goal? Bring manufacturing home, reclaim American jobs, and end foreign dependence. But the hidden impact? Cross-border partners like Canada and Mexico are being bled dry. Stellantis did the math, and the numbers were merciless. Brampton's cost structure couldn't survive the tariff wall. The cheaper solution was to move production to Illinois and Indiana. It's a pattern repeating across industries: steel, aluminum, energy, each used as a bargaining chip. Every move that boosts U.S. headlines creates aftershocks abroad. Canada's auto sector, built on integration since the 1965 Auto Pact, is suddenly treated like a foreign competitor. The very supply chains that made North America an auto superpower are now cracking under political weight. It wasn't supposed to end like this. In 2023, Stellantis had promised to retool Brampton for next-generation EV production. Hundreds of millions in green investment, thousands of secure jobs. Contracts were signed, subsidies negotiated, workers retrained. Then, in one press release, the promise vanished. Retooling was temporarily suspended. No timetable, no commitment. Weeks later, Reuters confirmed the $13 billion shift to U.S. plants. The math was done, the decision final.
Unifor Vice Chair Vito Beata was blunt. He intended to hold Stellantis to everything it promised. But holding a multinational to a moral contract when a presidential policy offers tax credits and tariff protection is like trying to pull a train backward by hand. The moment tariffs became law, the motive changed from keep jobs in North America to keep jobs in America. Canada was out of the circle. Every president uses trade policy to win votes, but Trump uses it to redraw maps. In public, he frames it as revival, factories reopening, blue-collar families rising again. In private, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was clear. The goal is to end vehicle assembly in Canada and move those jobs south. It's not policy, it's industrial migration. The White House calculates that each 1,000 auto jobs created in the U.S. translates to roughly $1.2 billion in local economic activity and votes in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin. For Trump 2025, that's not an economic metric, it's an election strategy. So when Stellantis plays along, it's not just business, it's alignment. Tariffs don't just raise prices, they reroute loyalties. Can Ottawa fight back? Technically, yes. Canada exports steel, aluminum, and critical energy supplies the U.S. can't easily replace. Unifor demands that the government use every lever of influence available. But so far, those levers look more like paperweights. Retaliatory tariffs would hurt Canadian consumers. Trade cases take years. Diplomacy moves too slow for workers whose pay ends this month.
Premier Doug Ford met with Unifor leaders and Lana Payne in Toronto days before the announcement. The message was grim. Don't sell out one sector for another. But without federal muscle, the province can only protest. Ottawa's silence is being read as consent. This isn't only about Stellantis, it's a blueprint. Ford, GM, and Toyota are watching. If U.S. tariffs dictate plant locations, why should any company risk Canadian production? Supply chains are adapting. Metal stampers in Windsor report orders down 30% since February. Part suppliers in Kitchener are pivoting to aerospace. Logistics firms are cutting routes between Ontario and Michigan. The entire ecosystem is rewiring for survival. And then there's the price. When production moves, costs don't disappear. They shift to consumers. Analysts at Bloomberg estimate that tariffs and relocation will add $1,200 to $1,800 per vehicle by 2026. Families who cheer for Made in America may soon wonder why their SUV payments skyrocketed. Inside Stellantis headquarters, the move was presented as strategic realignment. But Reuters sources say executives privately acknowledged tariff pressure as the decisive factor. CEO Antonio Filosa, newly appointed in mid-2025, called tariffs a variable we can't ignore. He delayed the company's next global strategy release to Q2 2026, buying time to navigate politics rather than markets. That's not leadership, that's triage.
Some have crossed the border to apply for the very jobs that replace theirs. The line between national interest and personal survival is blurring. Economists call this reverse integration. Instead of North America acting as one market, tariffs are forcing fragmentation. In the short term, it looks like a win for the US. In the long term, it's a structural decay of a continental economy that once moved as one machine. Remember, every auto built in North America crosses the border at least 6 times before final assembly. Disrupt that loop, and you don't just hurt Canada, you slow the entire system. Trucks idle, suppliers fold, investors hesitate. Protectionism creates winners on paper and wreckage in reality. The headlines celebrate a $13 billion win for America, but underneath the numbers lies a continent divided by policy, fear, and political revenge. Coming up, how this shift will reshape trade alliances, consumer prices, and the very idea of Made in America, and why Canada's next move may decide the future of North American industry itself. The $13 billion sounds like a win-win story, but look closer. It's not just money moving south, it's momentum. Every factory that opens in the US leaves an echo in Canada, an echo made of layoffs, mortgages, and silent lunchrooms. Workers in Brampton know this pattern. First comes a temporary pause, then the silence stretches into months. Then the new press release, the one that never mentions them.
You can picture it. A worker opens his phone before his shift and reads that the job he's driving toward has been moved 600 miles away. His skills haven't changed. The machines haven't changed. Only the politics did. That's how industrial wars feel on the ground. Not like explosions, but slow erasures. Unifor leaders say more than 5,000 Canadian jobs could vanish if the Brampton retooling dies. Each job supports 5 others: mechanics, diners, suppliers, daycare staff. That means a small city's heartbeat is tied to a decision made in a boardroom thousands of miles away. And that decision was driven not by market demand, but by tariffs. Here's the twist. The tariffs meant to protect U.S. workers may punish U.S. consumers next. Bloomberg analysts say moving assembly inland adds $1,200 to $1,800 to every new vehicle. Transport, retooling, new logistics, it all stacks up. So even as politicians promise Made in America, buyers will discover Paid by America. Dealers are already warning of higher sticker prices by early 2026. And with EVs still expensive, every extra cost slows adoption. So the same policies that revive one town may stall the green shift everywhere else. That's the paradox buried in this $13 billion victory. Canada isn't just a trading partner, it's the spine of America's supply chain. For 60 years, auto parts have crossed the border 6 times before final assembly. Engines cast in Windsor, seats stitched in Ohio, chips sourced from Quebec. That loop built North America's efficiency until tariffs broke it.
Now, trucks idle at crossings, orders shrink, and the quiet frustration inside Canadian plants is turning into anger. Lana Payne calls it economic betrayal dressed as patriotism. She's right about one thing: trust was the real currency of this partnership, and it's being devalued faster than the Canadian dollar. For Trump, this is optics gold. Factories reopening, flags waving, cameras rolling. In Illinois and Indiana, the crowds cheer, jobs are back. But for every headline about American resurgence, there's a footnote about Canadian collapse. And those footnotes rarely make the news. Trump's commerce team calls it industrial sovereignty, but in practice, it's industrial migration, a transfer of capital dressed as justice, because when one country's pride depends on another's pain, cooperation dies. That's not sovereignty, that's selective survival. What happens next? Other automakers will take notes. If tariffs can tilt Stellantis, they can tilt anyone. Ford, GM, Toyota, each will reevaluate where they assemble, where they paint, where they pay. Soon, plants across Ontario could face the same quiet question: are we next? And the answer may depend less on efficiency and more on elections. If tariffs remain through 2026, expect a wave of relocations. If they lift, expect a scramble, contracts renegotiated, production split again. Either way, uncertainty becomes policy. You might wonder, how does this hit me? Here's how. Every time supply chains stretch, prices climb. Every time tariffs rise, competition falls. So whether you live in Michigan or Manitoba, you'll feel it in car loans, repair bills, and insurance.
And there's another cost: choice. When production narrows to one side of a border, models disappear from the other. Canadian dealers already say some Jeep variants won't return in 2026. That means fewer options, longer waits, higher prices. The market doesn't shrink because people stop buying, it shrinks because politics start selling. So what can Ottawa do? Unifor wants retaliation, tariffs of its own, or massive incentives to lure new EV lines north. But Canada's budget is thin, and its market too small to scare a giant like Stellantis. Still, there's leverage. Canada holds the metals, the power, the proximity. If it plays energy exports and battery materials as bargaining chips, it can still force talks. The key is timing and courage. Premier Ford says you don't sell one sector to save another. That line has become the slogan of resistance. But slogans don't restart factories. Only deals do. And deals demand equal power, something Canada risks losing every month Brampton stays dark. Inside Stellantis, executives insist the move is temporary alignment, but you don't reopen Belvedere and close Brampton by accident. You do it because tariffs make math political. CEO Antonio Filosa's team is delaying its next global strategy to 2026, citing policy uncertainty. Translation: they're waiting to see which side wins the tariff war before choosing their allegiance. It's not loyalty, it's leverage. For workers, that means limbo. For investors, volatility. And for governments, humiliation. Because every time a company plays countries against each other, democracy looks smaller.
Step back for a moment. This isn't only about Stellantis. It's about what happens when politics rewrites economics faster than people can adjust, when governments chase headlines instead of harmony, and when words like reshoring become masks for relocation. We call it industrial strategy, but it's really industrial triage, saving one region by bleeding another. The result? Short-term jobs, long-term fragility. The same cycle that built and broke manufacturing towns for a century. Different decade, same story. By 2028, analysts expect Canada's auto employment to fall another 15% unless tariffs ease. In the same window, US auto prices could rise up to 10%. Both sides lose in different ways, one in paychecks, one in pocketbooks. So the real question isn't who wins, it's who can afford to keep pretending this is a win at all. Because when a border becomes a wall, innovation slows. When jobs become pawns, progress stops. And when neighbors become rivals, prosperity turns into pride, and pride is expensive. The roar of engines in Illinois is real. So is the silence in Brampton. Both are built on policy choices, not fate. One celebrates victory, the other counts the cost. And somewhere between them lies the truth about modern trade, that in chasing sovereignty, nations can quietly lose solidarity. So the next time you hear about a billion-dollar investment, ask yourself one question: who had to go silent for that engine to start?